Om Shanti. How are you? Now, in all countries, people have been stressing the need for having sex education at schools and colleges to avoid unprotected sex. And they think it will somehow reduce sexual crimes, rapes, and sexual abuses in children. And what they basically teach in sex education is how to have sex with protection using birth control methods, and how not to feel guilty for exploring their own body. But funny thing is, nobody needs to educate anybody regarding these things because it happens on its own. No animals go to school to learn these things to have sex. But what we really need to teach teenagers is the consequences of involving in any kind of sexual behavior. Because we are different from animals, because we are held responsible for our actions. The consequences of having sexual relationship with somebody or within yourself is going to create a dangerous impact for the rest of your life and possibly for afterlife. And before that, it is essential for teenagers to learn them, because teenage is a very important time in one's life. The age between 13 and 19, which is called teenage, is very important because it is only in their teens people start accumulating behaviors from the society in this birth. Till then, whatever the behavior they exhibit, they were inherited from their last birth. The things they study, the friends they mingle with, the books they read, and anything they come in contact with in their teens is going to determine the rest of life. The movies they watch in their teens is going to change their thinking pattern like forever. If you happen to meet your 5th or 6th grade friend in your 40s, you will be surprised to see that he is not anymore the person whom you knew in the past. But if you meet someone, some of your college friend in your 40s or 50s, you will also be surprised that he still remains the same. Nothing happened, nothing changed dramatically. So it's like you have become all of a sudden conscious of what's going on around you only in your teens. That's when you start to redefine yourselves by accumulating behaviors from your friends, parents, and others. So you see governments in the world spending millions in educating people about the ill effects of cigarettes, alcohol, and other addictive drugs. So that really helps many people, many students to stay away from them, because they keep on hearing that this is something wrong, that you should never touch it, or else you will end up reaping these bad consequences of using them. But no single soul in this world has ever raised voice against sex. Now they have come up with something against addiction to porn, but that's not going to help anybody, because they say porn addiction is bad. They come up with many scientific proof, but in the end they say sex is good. So addiction to porn is going to affect your sex life. That's what they say. It is like educating people that smoking is really good, but seeing somebody smoke is really bad. What's the difference between that and saying that having sex is good, but watching someone having sex in the form of porn is bad? Nobody even dares to think that sex is bad, which is why we see pastors, nuns, saints, everybody falls into sex. Why? Because nobody teaches them sex is bad. They just decided to stay out of sex and lead a celibate life, but they don't have a strong reason for that, which is why whenever they confront sexual temptation, they just fall for it, because deep in their mind it is imbibed that sex is really good. So children are exposed to materials in the form of study books and movies and songs that continuously say that love and sex is really good. Then how can you expect them to stay out of sex? Then why should you punish them for having sex when they are minor, when you are just bombarding them with materials that supports having sex? So people are unable to educate their children against sex because they themselves are addicted to sex. Of course, everybody is addicted to sex right from our birth, or to correctly put it, even before taking birth, in our past births. That's the main reason, even before knowing what sex is, we still feel attracted to the opposite gender. Where does it come from? It comes from the past birth. It continuously urges you to indulge in some form of sexual activity, and when you start saying to them that sex is good, obviously they are going to go for it. If you take alcohol or any addictive drug, the effect of that is going to last only for a few hours. But the effect of getting addicted to sex, once it gets initiated by your first sexual act, it's going to last till death. So it's going to be there permanently. Permanently there will be subtle urge. Whenever you end up doing everything you need to do, and whenever you go to rest, the sex thought is the first thing that's going to pop up. That's why in one famous Hollywood movie, a girl approaches the hero and proposes to him, but he refuses the proposal. For that, the girl says, "It's okay, you go study, then after school go play with your friends, play volleyball, go to gym, do all the exercises, then go to home, watch movies, then when you turn the television off, you will have the thoughts of me." So this is exactly how our mind works. That's the power of sex. So it constantly intoxicates us. That's the main reason you can find many children, after being in love, they couldn't concentrate as much as before. So that's the power of intoxication of love and sex. So why do governments form law against addictive drugs? Because when you are under the spell of that drug, you are unconscious. You can't do what you need to do as long as you are under the effect of that drug. So it's more like you are dead in that particular time. So we want to live. We shouldn't become unconscious just like that. But more than any addictive drug in the world, sex addicts you much more throughout your life. Once you get the taste of sex in the form of love or anything, you're just going to go for it all the time. So you just get addicted to the feeling of being in love, feeling of being sexually attracted to some person. So once you get addicted, you need to understand that you are addicted to that feeling and not to that person. You might think you are attracted to that person, but that's not the case. And you will realize it as soon as you get married to her or him. You will suddenly lose all the attraction to her or him, but you are still attracted to that feeling which is available only from somebody outside the marriage. That's how extramarital affairs happen, because of your attraction to that feeling of sexually attracted to somebody. At least with smoking and alcoholic addictions, you need to spend money, you need to go to shop, buy them, then consume them for you to feel the effect of it. But with sex and love, it just comes after you without any notice. It can come at any time, in the form of your call, in the form of text chat or casual communication. It just happens without any notice, which means it is there to steal your time anytime. Actually, we are very much mentally strong in our childhood compared to our adulthood. So our mental strength gradually decreases as we grow older, as we get addicted to external things, and especially sex. When you indulge yourself more and more in some sorts of sexual activities, your mental strength is going to decrease very rapidly. But now we are seeing many teenagers committing suicide due to love breakups. They can't tolerate that even in their teens. So how are they going to tolerate in their adulthood? So that's why we see many celebrities who are on the rehab after love breakup. They just couldn't come out of it. That's the kind of addiction that we have. The more you are addicted and attached to something, it's going to hurt you really bad when that addictive material is separated from you. So it is because of this addiction they couldn't take cheating on them. When their spouse cheats on them, so they don't eat normally, they don't sleep normally, they don't work normally. It's like they are paralyzed mentally and also to some extent physically. Only this addiction to sex has the capacity to make you feel unconscious throughout the day and even night fully. That's why you see people spending their whole night on the phone speaking with someone whom they are sexually attracted to. So their mind don't want to think or worry about the duties he need to do in the morning. That's the reason they spend the whole night. Obviously, if they spend the whole night speaking with each other, either sexually or non-sexually, they're not going to wake up early. They're not there to perform the task with 100% of their capability. So this sexual attraction makes one forget their essential duties as well. I think it is in another Hollywood movie where the heroine, who is, I don't know whether it's Julia Roberts or Angelina Jolie, she has extramarital affair with a guy, with an attractive guy, younger guy, that he spends her whole day with him. At one point, she even forgets the time that she needs to get her children back from school. That's when she realized how stupid and how addictive she became to this relationship, that she even forgot the critical responsibility of her. So you need to teach kids about the consequences of having extramarital affairs or sex, because it's nothing but sexual attraction. It is, in the beginning you get sexually attracted to some person which this society doesn't oppose, but that addiction makes you look for other relationships outside marriage which this society opposes. When your lover doesn't speak to you because of the minor argument you had with each other, you will see yourself checking your mobile phone frequently, which means this addiction takes all your attention away from all your essential duties. So this is the thing you need to educate teenagers so that they will stay away from getting into these relationships. And also, just because they are surrounded by everybody who is in love with each other, if they don't find love, then they find themselves inferior to others. Truly, you need to feel superior, that you have the control over your mind from falling into those fatal attractions. If you are able to have total control over your mind from opposite sexual attractions, then your mind is free to focus on anything productive so that you can succeed in all walks of life. So the amount of sexual addiction in our past births determines our ability to focus in studies in this birth, which is why you find most of the students in schools, they are not able to concentrate on their studies. So this reveals the amount of addiction they had in their past birth, which resulted in their soul to lose power. And you will see them attracted to everything around them. That's the main reason they couldn't focus on the study. So the amount of sexual addiction we have in this birth is going to determine your fate in the next birth, because being unable to focus on studies is itself a great punishment, because they can't focus on studies, they can't focus on work, so they need to work really hard throughout their life, but they'll be paid very little compared to the rest of their friends. That's not the only punishment. So that's the minimum punishment. The maximum punishment being born into a poor family, born with physical defects in the body, and being born in a place where there is war, or there is frequent natural calamities, or any disturbing situation that makes them almost impossible for them to come out of the situation in order for them to achieve anything fruitful. So if you're going to indulge in sex daily after getting married, obviously your soul is going to lose more and more power, which means you are going to get more and more attracted to other people other than your spouse. So that's going to put your life of you and your spouse into big trouble, which you don't really want to happen in the first place, right? So recently a married man was having an affair with another girl. So the wife heard about this relationship and she went to that girl's house and had an argument with her. Then that girl along with her relatives come to this person's house and start quarreling with each other, which actually made this person, this man, very angry, and at one point he even murdered one of her relatives, and he ended up in a prison. Then a week later, this wife, while returning from her work, was attacked violently by 4 people. So all of these things happened because of his addiction to the feeling of sex and feeling of being in love. He didn't know that it's going to lead to these things. If he knew it beforehand, obviously he wouldn't have done it. But it is definite that you will end up paying dire consequences for being addicted to these sexual relationships. It may not happen right away, but it will definitely happen for sure. And now comes the question, if sex is so poisonous, why did God create that in the first place? Well, to answer that question, God doesn't create world with sex. He created world free of sex, which is called heaven. For the first 2500 years, this world was heaven, filled with wealth, health, peace, and blissfulness. The reason for that is pretty simple. They were soul conscious, which means they considered themselves to be the soul, the life energy that operates this body, that sees through the eyes, that speaks through the mouth, that listens through the ears, that performs actions through its body parts. But I'm not this body, I'm just the soul that operates this body. This is the kind of consciousness we possess in the beginning. So that's how God created. Because of that, we didn't get attracted to anything external to us. But we were blissful throughout, because that's the true nature of soul. Because we were concentrated to ourselves. So the more we had this concentration on the fact that we are souls, we are going to enjoy the blissfulness of it. So that blissfulness is going to reduce very slowly, because we lose the concentration to focus on the soul very slowly, birth after birth. But after the completion of first 2500 years, we completely lose focus on the soul, which means we lost soul consciousness altogether. So thereby we become body conscious. So we no longer experience blissfulness from within. Instead, we start seeking out pleasure from the external world through our senses. Thereby we become addicted to the sensual pleasures and five vices: lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. These vices are called sins. So we start committing sins, thereby we start experiencing punishments for those sins. But we didn't know that they are sins in the first place. That's the reason God comes 100 years before the destruction of this world. He enters an old man's body and gives these teachings through his mouth. And the teachings is called Murli, which is available free of cost in all Rajyog meditation centers, and also it is available in several websites and YouTube channels. I'll be giving the links of some of them in the description below. Please make use of it. This knowledge given directly by God is available only in Brahma Kumari's Raj Yoga meditation centers. It is spread across the globe in all countries. You can Google it yourself to find the address of the nearest center in your area. So in heaven we were living in palaces made of golden bricks. Despite that, we didn't have the windows and doors to protect thieves from entering into our home. Why? Because nobody knows what stealing is. Nobody were selfish. They were as innocent as a newborn, which is why Hindus worship them as deities in Hindu temples till date, without even realizing that they are the ones who inhabited heaven in the beginning. After taking several rebirths, we slowly lose everything: health, wealth, beauty, peace, everything, because of our addiction to the external world. And there is also the reason for the natural calamities and war that we face now. So God now says that this world is going to become heaven again. So for that, you need to become soul conscious again. So if you are able to bring your focus to yourself, which means the soul, then you are making yourself eligible to become the resident of heaven. Not only that, you should be able to attain the highest status in heaven, which is Sri Narayan. So he is the number one king of heaven. It is by becoming soul conscious and by conquering these vices, especially lust, that we conquer the whole world, which is free of any sorts of suffering and pain. But how to regain the power to focus on ourselves? That's where God says that you need to remember God as a point of light, because He is also a soul just like us. The only difference between God and other souls is, although we resided along with God in this supreme abode, which is a golden red colored light world, the main difference is we enter this birth and death cycle that lasts for 5,000 years, while God stays away from this birth and death cycle. But anyway, he needs to come in the end, because only he has this knowledge to educate us to become soul conscious again, thereby regaining all the health and wealth and peace and blissfulness that we have lost over 5,000 years. So by considering ourselves to be the soul and remembering God as a point of light as much as possible, that we are able to conquer these 5 vices, especially lust, and we'll be able to become Sri Narayan, the number 1 king of the world. He is number 1 in terms of wealth, beauty, divine qualities, everything you say. Not only that, by conquering these 5 vices, you are escaping from the punishments for the sins that you have been committing for the past 2,500 years in hell. So by following the instructions of God, not only you are able to enter heaven, but also you are going to escape from the sufferings of hell, although you are physically in hell now. If you are in love, obviously you are going to get attracted towards others. If you are married, obviously you are going to get attracted towards others, because you are already addicted, which is why you loved in the first place. So now you need to make a vow to yourself or to God that you are going to come out of this addiction altogether. The only for that is to refrain from any sort of sexual activities, whether watching pornographic or having sexual behaviors or sexual acts with your partner. You need to put an end to it if you want to stay safe for the rest of your life. But the world teaches you the other way around. They say it is because you don't enjoy sex with your spouse that you start looking outside for sex, which is not true in the first place. It is when your soul loses power that it loses the power to focus on something productive, that it seeks out pleasure. So it seeks out pleasure from speaking with friends, by playing with friends, or playing video games, or going to parties, which finally comes to sex. So once you get addicted to sex, all the other addictions doesn't have the power over you, because you are deep down buried in sex. So it is because of your body consciousness that you consider yourself to be a girl or guy. So you are attracted to the opposite sex. But if you consider yourselves to be the soul that's free from this body, obviously you are going to see the other person as soul. There's nothing sexual in it. Obviously you are not going to sexually attracted to each other, but it's not going to happen just like that. It needs more and more effort. It takes time. But be patient and make effort constantly. Even if you fail once or twice, it's okay. Just get up as soon as possible and start making effort. All you need to do is to remember constantly that you are the soul, and also you need to remember God as a point of light that shines like a tiny star in the golden red colored sky. That's where we came from. That's where we are going to go. So you need to constantly remember as the soul, and also you need to remember that you were the ruler of this entire world, which was heaven in the beginning, and you are going to become that again. So when your soul loses power, it loses the power to concentrate. So it gets attracted to inferior things, inferior pleasures. So the most inferior of them is sex. I know you will come up with the question, if sex is wrong, how can we give birth to the young ones? That was not the case in heaven. They didn't know about sex. They were not disturbed even a bit. So there, the husband and wife had this thought of having a baby, which makes the women pregnant. That's how they were pregnant in heaven. There is nothing physical between them. They were as pure as the newborn child, which is why Jesus in Bible says that if you were not as innocent as a newborn child, you couldn't enter heaven. So you need to understand, if you are attracted to something external to you, it means your mind gets bored. So when you are attracted to something addictive, even your mind now gets bored to the things you were previously addicted. So that's a dangerous sign. So when a sexual thought arises in you, then it should alert you that there is something serious in your mind. It has lost its power. So now it's time to increase the power of the soul by connecting your mind with God. It's not time to get addicted to sexual activities. So it's like adding fuel to the fire. You need to put off the fire by pouring water into it, not fuel into it. So that's the reason you need to wake up early in the morning, say 3 or 4 a.m. and remember God at least for 30 to 60 minutes. Then you need to study the direct knowledge of God called Murli. So that fills your mind with very good things, good thoughts. You need to recollect those Murli points every 30 minutes throughout the day in order to keep your mind powerful throughout the day. Only when it becomes weak, it falls for the inferior things. So anything that you are surrounded with will decrease the power of your mind when you focus on them. Which is why God says, don't see, hear, or think about the things or persons or events in this world which is going to steal the power of your soul. But anyway, when we are living in this world, we need to interact with people, but do it cautiously. So it's like immersing your hand in a drainage. So obviously your hand is going to become impure, right? So this happens physically so that you can see it, feel it. Likewise, whenever you speak with somebody or you see somebody or think about somebody, your mind also becomes impure. So within 5 minutes of that, you need to consider yourself as a soul and connect your mind back to the God, the Supreme Soul, who is called Shiva by Hindus, Allah by Muslims, Heavenly Godfather by Christians. God is one. So it is by connecting our mind repeatedly to God that we can wash our impurities constantly, thereby remain pure all the time, thereby remain powerful all the time, so we don't fall for those temptations. All religions speak against prostitution, but no religion speaks against sex. It's impossible to wipe out prostitution unless you implant the thought that sex itself is a sin. which no religion seems to do, because all religions are man-made. God doesn't create any religion. You don't find the actual word of God in any religion, which is why people fight in the name of religions. So God is one. He comes only once in the end, and the knowledge given by God is also one. And that knowledge is the one that makes us eligible to go back to heaven where we originally came from. So now the teenagers even commit suicide over silly things like teachers shouting at them, parents shouting at them. So they are so angry that when they find they couldn't do anything about it, they end their life just like that. It's all because their soul lacks the power to face anything now because of the addiction to sex over several past births. So it is true that we are addicted right from our birth. So you need to realize that, and you need to take steps to come out of it constantly. So you need to educate your children and friends and relatives about this. You can't expect the government to do that anytime soon. So if you love them, you teach them, you share this video with them so that they remain safe. Om Shanti. Thanks for watching this video this long, and I hope you will benefit from them. If you do, please leave the comments in the comment section, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe and like this video if you really like, and share this video with your friends and relatives. Thanks for watching.